hundreds of trillions of dollars coursing through our economic veins, there exists a pathway where no U.S. citizen needs endure poverty. Every child should be shielded from involuntary hunger and thirst. By eradicating greed and corruption, we pave the way forward. This chapter delves into the rationale behind our governmental expenditure and prompts a critical inquiry into how our leaders allocate our resources.
Boy, what a perfect opening for what we just went through. Good evening, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Duff, and tonight we venture into a rare and raw territory. What happens when the machinery of our nation stops? When the machinery of our nation stops, when the gears grind and the pipes freeze, the lights dim, not just in Washington, but in living paychecks, futures, the living rooms, the kitchens, paychecks, futures for 40 days. Yes, 40 days, the federal government of the United States entered a shutdown. Offices closed, programs paused, hundreds of thousands of workers furloughed or forced to be working without pay. This isn't just a political headline. It's a blow to the rhythm of everyday life. Today, I'm asking, what did this shutdown teach us about faith, fire, and the fight for the American middle class? Because when the government stops working, it's the middle class that often carries the cost. The fragility of function. Think about those words for a minute. Let's start with what we learned about function. The machinery of government, the programs, the agencies, the contracts, they're not invincible. When funding lapses, lives are disrupted. For example, over 2,700 flights were delayed on a single day during the shutdown, as air traffic controllers and TSA personnel worked under increasing strain. Programs that countless families rely on, nutrition assistance, state services, they moved from steady to shaky, right? At least 6,700 federal employees have been furloughed, and about 730,000 are working without pay. Think about that. What's the takeaway? Even when the system seems stable, it only takes a moment of paralysis for trust to crack. The lights go out, the wheels stop turning, and people feel it terribly. A bank might still let you deposit money, but if your paycheck stops, your mortgage doesn't care. Let's talk about trust, not just in government, but in leadership, in institutions, in conversation. Oh, we're already getting our first question here. Okay. Yeah, we tell ourselves about progress and fairness when leaders weaponize stalemate, when they say we'll win by refusing to budge, or our way or nothing. Something happens to confidence. People begin to ask, if you govern me, can you even keep the lights on? Here's a hard truth. A nation's economy runs on confidence. When that erodes, the Council of Economic Advisors warned this shutdown could shave roughly 0.1% off the annual GDP growth each week. Think about that, 40 days. It's well over 4 weeks, right? So almost 1%, half of 1%. and hit consumer spending by the tens of billions. Meanwhile, one more piece of the picture. Many of the people hurt by the shutdown are also people who supported the very leaders who engineered it. That's where trust becomes personal. So what's the fallout to the middle class? Let's bring this down to the great middle class, folks. Trying to make a living, raise a family, hold on to the promise of tomorrow. This shutdown meant missed paychecks for federal workers, delayed contracting for small businesses that depend on the feds, paused child care grants, uncertainty for working parents, food assistance programs in jeopardy, construction projects slowing, local economies feeling it, ripple effects growing larger the larger the pause. When working families become collateral damage in a partisan play, that's the real price tag. One that doesn't show up just in billions lost in GDP, but in waking up wondering whether you'll meet your payment this week. The great middle class is resilient, no doubt about it, but the resilience has a breaking point. But it's not all despair. In fact, this is where faith and fire meet. During the shutdown, the official machinery shudders, right? And what happens? The unsung heroes show up. Community centers keep running. Local charities step in. Small town networks say, if we're going to wait for Washington, we'll not just wait, we'll act. That's the backbone of the middle class. Grit, community, local leadership. When the national stage is frozen, when the national system falters, the human system must carry the load. Faith in action, fire in your belly, and yes, a light to hold on. Change this. Now switching gears, producer Barbie reminded me healing isn't about being okay. It's about being honest. She calls it healing isn't polished. I love that. Here's how that applies. The shutdown didn't just stop the government. It reflected something deeper in our lives too. When the system we depend on fails, whether the system is a family, a job, a vow, a relationship, we often try to cover it up. We say, I'm fine. We'll get through this. But the truth is raw. Healing isn't about putting on a shiny outfit and smiling. It's about saying, this hurt. I felt betrayed. I'm shaken. Then saying, now, what will I do with that? Right? Faith meets fire when we say, I'm going to hold on to you and I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to protect my peace and I'm going to remain open to healing because protective doesn't mean cold. It means clear. So today, I say to you, if your trust has been broken by the system, by your job, by your loved ones, this is your ladder up. Honesty to persistence, to compassion, not gloss, not polish, gritty grace. Let me share a personal moment I shared with you last week, just real briefly. On a personal note, I had a call from a family member I hadn't spoken to in years. The pain in my chest when I picked up the phone, the years of silence, the unsaid things, it was familiar. That moment paralleled what's happening nationally. We rely on systems that are supposed to protect us, to speak for us, deliver for us. And when they don't, we feel abandoned. But that call also reminded me, I can love that person from a distance. I can set a boundary. I can say, I'm not okay with how we got here. and still want healing, because healing doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means showing up, telling the truth about the fire, and then finding a way through it. Let's pull all this together. Faith. When the system breaks, faith doesn't mean everything's perfect. It means we believe in the possibility of repair, in the promise of community, in the power of action. Fire. We must ignite the inner engine that says, this matters. I will not let my family, my community, my country be sidelined by dysfunction. The fire says no more silent collapse. Fight. But fight is not anger only, not screaming without purpose. It's strategic. It's local. It's persistent. It's the middle class saying, we will rebuild this function. We will rebuild the trust. We will rebuild our lives. The shutdown taught us when Washington stops, citizens don't just sit, they move. But the move is harder when your resources are cut. So we need to fight for policy, for governance, for leadership, and for the living room, the kitchen table, the family facing the consequences. Here's some questions for you. You guys in the audience, I see you coming in. Here's a question for you. Because this is not just my monologue, it's our dialogue. What did this shutdown teach you about trust in leaders, in institutions, in your own life? Where have you experienced your own kind of shutdown? Emotional, spiritual, relational? How can you rebuild trust in your government, in your family, in yourself, without pretending everything's fine? Why stay in the studio? I hope you guys can hear me. Questions are coming in. I certainly hope you can hear me. So in closing, so this shutdown continues. Well, it just ended, right? As we stand here in 40 days of silence, let's decide silence is no longer an option. Light the fire, seek the honesty, cultivate in faith, and fight for the system we need and the lives we deserve. Producer Barbie's words rang in my head. Healing is polished. Let's stop pretending. Let's start rebuilding together. And that's my monologue for this morning show. I wanted to hit one that I saw right out of the gate here. Let's see, this one, I think. How to be poor and stay poor. That's not the one I was looking at. I thought there was a one on somebody that was on an airplane. I'm sorry. Pan Am flight 775. That's clever. That's very clever. I like that. Let me get out of these notes here. Let's go to comments. Let's take off the notes. And there we are. So welcome, everybody. We've got, I can't tell how many people are here. I wonder why that doesn't show up now. That's interesting. Let's move that over here. You see their questions here. How to be poor and stay poor. Is that by being a pilot or an air traffic controller? Is that what you're alluding to there, my friend? Very clever. Well said. I'm really interested why this is not given me a count of how many people are here. I just tried this new thing, hide vertical. So right now, I've got myself on 2 screens, and why does it say go live? What the heck is going on with this? I hope everybody, I mean, you guys are asking questions, so I gotta believe we're live. Let me look at something real quick here. I'm gonna go look at where we are. View your channel. There should be 2, and they both say live. So yeah, okay, we're live. But so what I was saying is I've started this new application in StreamYard, and it's called Mars, and it allows for simultaneously streaming to, well, we stream to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to YouTube, X, and Instagram, all at the same time. What StreamYard has put in is this ability to stream vertically or horizontally, depending on what, and you set it up prior to it, but you either are for like phones, it shows the picture exactly how it is differently from say a desktop. Very cool, but it's also, I think there's a couple of quirks in there, and that is, let me see what I can do here. That's interesting. So, but it's not showing the live count. It says scheduled, which is kind of quirky, but I don't know. I'm going to have to play around with it. I know that there's at least, well, I would imagine there's at least a couple hundred people on. We've got already half a dozen questions from the audience. So it's showtime scheduled. This says go live, but it's set. Okay, so I'm getting too caught up in this, but I know we're live, so there's nothing I can do except just work my way through it. So Adam Wayne, powerful message. What a way to connect politics with personal healing. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Adam. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much of a what would I call it? So much of a mirror going on here. And the shutdown has ended, and the Democrats, I think it was 8 of them, came and voted for the resolution that's been on the table the whole time. I had told somebody here locally in Mangum, about the shutdown. I said, "You watch. They want to get through the election and show that they're fighting Donald Trump. I mean, that's the whole mission here." And I said, as soon as the election's held, and they'll that week there'll be about 8 or so Democrats that jump over and the resolution gets passed. And it's such a sad and frustrating case that we have people who are running our country that we elect for, we support, and they do these kind of things to us. I was watching some different things that came on, and the reason for the healthcare, the Republican healthcare emergency or something, whatever it's coined as, these political games are literally disgusting, and they put us in the fire of it. They put us, the great middle class, we're the ones that are affected the most. These services that many hundreds of thousands, millions of people depend on, and yet it doesn't matter. They want to win that fight. The old guard is there for power, and that's it. They're not there to work with their constituents or follow their constituents. They create a narrative that protects them as best as they can, and then they go through this buffoonery. But so thank you, Adam. I appreciate your comment there. It's a powerful message, yes, and it's a powerful thing that's going on, and we can't have this. We've got to learn from this, folks. I mean, this goes back to my regular calling out for us to have watch parties. You know, I talked about in the last election, Barbie, her son, her daughter-in-law, and the surrounding people did another watch party. They sat down, they had some nice food, just regular food, like this is. You're at a house party and you're hanging out with your friends and you're talking about this. So at the end of the day, they went through that process, and I'm very excited that it's beginning to happen. So Jeffrey, do you think the government really learned anything from this shutdown? Government? No, I mean, this isn't the first shutdown. This is the longest one in U.S. history. But do I think the government learned anything? What I really hope is that people, the government's constituents, learn something. Now, I do have to say that, along the edge of that, parallel to that what I just said, the fact of, let me turn this, I got too much light in my eyes here. The fact that it's interesting, the fact that we have a president in there who doesn't act like presidents of the past. He acts like a businessman and a negotiator. And I think that parts of this government learned that it's not the same old rules. You can't just get away with these games. People are a couple steps ahead of other people. And I think people in the government learned some things from this lesson. For me, it's not about party. It's about the person. And I'm really, I've always said this when I talk about Trump. I say, it's trust but verify. And to me, this seemed to be a pretty clever approach to having the Democrats try and hold everybody hostage here. And if it was the other way around, I'd be calling out the other way around. In this particular case, I from everything I see, and I watched all different social medias and news agencies, and I'm very big on listening to both sides of the story, and it's I think this is the thing that really hurt the Democratic Party. Another thing that did, and several people within the Democratic Party. So I think there's that. But what I really am interested in, what really I hope is happening is that people are learning that as in my opening monologue there, I hope that people are learning that they need to start really looking at the people that they're electing. And we don't do that. I mean, by massive amounts. I'm sure there's lots of people who do, but there's tons of people who don't. And spending a little time on it, not just believing whatever news station you typically listen to, or, not just those things, but the other things that matter in what it is they're pushing on the American people, what their ideals are, and how they're going to do it, and not get away with vague answers or sideways, sidestepping things that are really important about what they're talking about to us. That's what I hope really comes out of this government shutdown. And at the end of the day, some of us were affected, but I don't know how many. Government workers, yes, but we also have way too many government workers, and we need smaller government. That's something I do believe as an independent, that we do need smaller government. And I think Trump used that to work that in, getting rid of some government workers, some government programs. They were trying to take the $1.7 trillion that Doge saved from waste, and that was part of the package from the government. I mean, we're going to be negotiated. This may happen again in a month. Both sides are going to negotiate again. They're extending everything just for a month till January. Well, a little over a month, January 30th. Sorry, 2 months. And they're using that as time to negotiate what it is that they're going to negotiate. That's going to be an interesting next couple of months. So this isn't over. And why is it? I mean, there's so many things I could get into here. I should have a follow-up. I'm really against how, why, what, and when, and where the Democrats played this out. And the Democratic Party, the leaders in the Democratic Party, not every one of them, but a number of them. And it's frustrating to me because there was a Senate discussion, open floor discussion about 3 days ago, 3.5 days ago, maybe somewhere in there, where there were two Republicans, I grant you, very, very popular, the Speaker of the House and the chair of the Finance Committee, and they were breaking down line by line what this thing that the Democratic leadership wanted. And as I listened, I mean, we hear about the, $300 million for gay, lesbian, transgender people in Uganda, and just really, really crazy, stupid things that are obviously only there because of some sort of favor or some sort of benefit that certain people are getting. When you see these pork things and bills, most from what I would say almost all, basically, but at least a great number are just weird, and they're fighting for these things. And I'm not even talking about the trillions and trillions of dollars that were in this bill that they wanted to go back to a clean CR, which they ended up doing. The Senate actually passed to reopen, and what they're fighting for are things that, I mean, if we had a watch party and we had all of us sitting around and saying, okay, what's this? And just watch this 20-30 minute back and forth. There was nobody from the Democratic Party there. It was only Republicans because the Democratic Party were not wanting to be there, I guess. But as I watched this, it was on YouTube. Well, it was on TV, but YouTube, there was a broadcast of it. And if anybody ever sits back and listens to and watches the actual items that are in these appropriation bills, that is, I can't imagine anybody would allow that, whoever's supporting those items, there's all this was about Obamacare, which these subsidies for Obamacare is only because the Democrats made it end this month when they did it back when Biden was in office. They carried it over so it would end this month. I mean, why didn't they keep it going forever? They did the Tesla subsidies are going on till 2030. They voted that to go until like 2030, and they voted this to go until like 2025. And yet they shut the government down because they wanted to have it go again. So there's political games that are they're not even complex. That's what I want, is more coverage of this back and forth and people honestly listening to it. Like No King's Day, the rally, the protest of hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And they're saying no kings, and that whole slogan, just defying and criminalizing Trump again and again and again. But here's the thing that nobody ever asks. Okay, if Trump is a king, a tyrant, how are you holding this protest? How can you have a protest against somebody who's supposedly a king, not a duly elected president? How can you have that protest if he is? I mean, what are you protesting against? Something that you're doing, or you're protesting against somebody who is not fitting the description of your protest. Not even the fact that these things are supported by millions and millions of dollars of people like George Soros, these idiosyncrasies might be too kind of a word, but these dynamic back and forth are very frustrating when you hear what they're saying, and then you ask, okay, so how can you be here in a march if he's taking your rights, your freedom of speech away? How are you here doing that? And there's never an answer that comes out of that. And maybe it's just because maybe there are better answers, and we just don't see them. And that's where the failure of the system, the media, it all comes together to create this dynamic juxtaposition, right? This very bitter thing. So Jeffrey, that's what I want to come out of this shutdown. Boy, I can't tell how this thing is really crazy. So we've been going about 40 minutes. I mean, none of my normal stuff is here. I don't know if I like this part. I like to see how many people are on. I like to see, let me see if I hide the vertical. Let's do that. Yeah, I don't know what it changes. What's this do? And yeah, it says scheduled. Bizarre. It's like the shutdown. This thing's acting quirky. I don't know if I'm going to like this Mars thing or not. I still haven't decided. Show comments on stage. So, Juano, Villano. What's the biggest personal lesson you took from those 40 silent days? That we need watch parties, man. That we need to get this country, our leadership, under control. We do not have control, and I think this is it's not the only example. It's just another example of that happening, and it's that personal lesson is that we need to keep doing this. We need to keep growing the activity. We need to keep growing our momentum. We need to really get to a point where it's like, if 90,000 people or 100,000 people can show up at a football game, and I get it. It's it's fun. You get your mind off actually what I'm talking about. But that investment, the return on investment on that is dynamic. It's nearly impossible to not know how that can be, how amazing and beneficial that can be, to the point where literally half of your the cost of living would drop by half, by 2/3, down next to nothing with AI coming in. And there's so much that needs to be done, but it could be done so easily. And we got to have people that are willing to talk to each other that have opposing ideas. It has to be a conversation you go into wanting to learn. And that's not easy. It's not easy for me, and I'm very center oriented. But when you hear extreme things, there's work that needs to be done. So, the Regeneration School project, I think, really kind of, as generations go by, or a generation and then the second come through, I think a lot of the inadequacies of the human experience, the inadequacies of ourselves really start to dissolve away. And me personally taking that ability to heal, that lesson that Barbie put out there regarding to love somebody from afar and still wishing for their healing or my healing. That's something I really need to pay attention to. Let me see what this does. It just brings it back up. Remove from stage, broad host of insights, edit and settings, mute. Yeah, this layout is for me too different. Show vertical, because I can't, what I want to show scenes panel. Let's see what that does. Does that bring anything out? No, doesn't really, does it? Show on stage. So we got that going. It's got to be back here somewhere. Oh, I don't know. So let's go on to Misty Green. The shutdown is almost over. It's over. We'll be open on or before November 15th. I think we're already there. I don't know what it looks like because it came through late last night. So the shutdown is open. Misty, that's a great question that I don't know how to answer that, because from my understanding, which I haven't seen a lot. I mean, it just came through, right? So I just started seeing the headlines of that, and then I had to be in here. So I don't have a great answer for you. Now, are you saying then, Misty, and if you want to, if you know more than what I do, for everybody's benefit, please add to your comments here, because it's almost over. So are we just going through the transition of getting it back open? Is that where you're going? Or, I mean, I noticed that there was a whole ton of cars down the main drag, Oklahoma Street, in downtown. I go by it every day, the courthouse, and there was piles of cars. I mean, usually there's a number of cars because there's stores, and then there's the courthouse, and there's this and that. But and then I saw a police officer coming out of one of the shops, and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Why is there so many things? Why are there so many cars there?" I mean, like 10, 20 times more than I've ever seen. Only been here a few months, so a couple of months. So so I asked, and they said court today. So I'm guessing that there's a lot of backlog, that there in other words, court's in session now. It hasn't been for 40-ish days, and now they're catching back up. Is where I gotta believe we're there. So we'll be open on or before November 15th. So is there like a transition thing going on? Maybe parts of it were funded. I don't know the whole story yet. So I just wanted to throw this out to start that conversation. But thank you very much, Misty. Please add on to your thought here to clarify for me. That's what we're here for. I'm here to learn. I'm the safety net. If I understand it, everybody here definitely will understand it. So that's all I got for that one. So Ariel, how you doing? What role does community play when the system breaks down? Oh, that's those hidden heroes. Those behind the scenes heroes. Communities step up. Social services locally in each community, churches, not necessarily officials, but responders and so forth. People really do pull together, and yes, community plays a huge role, and that's why we talk about community so often, because one of the dangers is you've got a little bit of a juxtaposition here. I really like that word. I've been using it lately, because what you have is communities breaking down and being divided, just like neighbors are, let's say, or states are. So what happens is when a system breaks down, communities aren't as woven together as necessarily we should be, and that's a big issue. That's the combination of things coming together in a perfect storm, and that's not a good thing. So communities, we really need to build that tighter relationship and build within. I talked about last week, or Saturday maybe it was, which was last week, but I remember we were talking about the small business owners that can hold a block together when financial stress is evident, is there. So community plays a big role. Where are we at on time here? Let's move on here to Kevin. What was your reaction when the shutdown hit day 40? It's not about the day, the number 40, although that's what happened. But it's one. It was like, well, here's the thing. I knew what was going to happen. Very quickly, I could tell that so right now it's about party out there. It's about Democrats versus Republicans, and it's about people who voted for Trump and the other half that that just do anything they can to destroy what he's doing. And it's so with the election that just happened on the, what was it, November 4th, right? Yeah. So last week, I said, look, as soon as that election's over, whatever the results was, and I think it went a little longer because I think the Democrats really, their party re-elected, blue states re-elected blue running mayors, and so that was a big win, right? Well, actually, very concerned about New York right now with Mondavi. You're talking about a true socialist, a communist, a very, very, very. Let's see what happens over the next couple of months. Let's see what you know, some of the things that he's done in the past that hasn't been out yet really start coming out. Let's see how happy the people in New York are. There's, I don't know, several 100,000 millionaires that live in New York. And there's, what is there, like 170 billionaires? And they're all starting to move their operations and or their home out of the city of New York, out of New York. Florida is getting a ton of people, from what I understand. And those people pay 49.9% of all the taxes in New York. So if that tax base goes away, what do you think they're going to do? Cuts? Or are they going to go more after the great American middle class? That's the lessons that we learn. So when it hit 40, actually, I was a little surprised it went that far, only because, as I was saying, after the election, predicted 8 Democrats would come over to the Republican side, or go over to the Republican side, and that way they could show at least that they were fighting for this, and this was hurting the Republican Party, which would give fire to the Democratic Party candidates. I mean, all they're redoing is, New Jersey, New York, these are blue states, right? So whatever that is, well, if they would have lost some, then that would have really been a bad thing for the Democratic Party. But yeah, so my answer to that is, I was surprised that it went past 35 days or 36 days. And so when it hit 40, that was a little surprising that it did go further than it did. And I don't know the reason for that. I'm not a political scientist or anything, but these are conversations I want to have a lot more of. We've got some great lineups this week, which is very exciting. My Substack is really starting to churn out, and on Mondays we do Barbie-isms. On Wednesdays we do either a sample of one of the chapters within my book, 13 chapters, each one covering a different segment that we talk about on this show. For instance, chapter 13, Blinded by the Light, is religion and Martians, let's say. There's a tie-in here that I really am curious about, because here's the thing, and I go to church, but here's the thing, God is real, but religion is man-made, and the Bible is written by 70 some different authors, something like that. And there's a lot of parts of the Bible that aren't in the Bible. And then we have the different religions between Islam and Judaism and Christianity, and the different sects of those, of Christianity, and of course of each of those religions. There's different views, or different people within the Muslim population that are different Muslims, like Sunni, and that look at the Quran differently. Same with Judaism. There's some real hardcore, the dudes with the ponytails coming down, the very, very, very radicalized, if you want to say. You can go as recently back to say in the Scotland, Ireland area over there, where the Protestants and the Christians were blowing each other up and killing each other. So there's just the politics is another chapter. Schools is another chapter, and then things like this, that we talk about as well on the show. So my biggest biggest reaction was, holy crap, it's still going on after 40 days. So Ariel comes back to us with this topic needed to be talked about. Thank you for saying what many feel. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, that's why we're here. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about. These are the things that matter in our world. And we all have these same issues. And like you said, nobody talks about them openly. Maybe it'll all start from around the dinner table discussions, and then you'll talk to your neighbors. That's why governments keep their people divided and separated and not talking to each other. Because if we did talk to each other, there'd be so many of these things that would be resolved, and we can't resolve them if we don't communicate with each other, if we don't talk about them, if we don't say, but wait, what do you mean by that? Because I always heard this. What is that? And we've got to be careful when that begins, because we've got to be able to be the adult in the room and not break it down. Hold on, let me see. Business now. I don't need that. Sorry, my phone's blowing up again. So this is something that needs to be said and needs to be discussed and worked on. I'm really curious to see what this looks like after it's all over. Kevin comes back to us, says, how did you rebuild trust, both personally and politically? I haven't. I mean, this is, I think politically it's coming. Personally, I've still got a journey to go on there, to be honest with you, Kevin. And the last, what I was referring to in that personal note is as a young, he's now a young man. And I didn't realize I had still so much anger about this, and it just goes on day in and day out because of what's happening with my mom's estate. And it's not about me; it's about her legacy and how they're just greed. It kind of is parallel, the greed that certain people have. And the worst part about it is I'm not even allowed to know anything about it. The whole thing is just a very disgusting show of what humans can be, and why I believe now that blood is not thicker than water. Man, that's sad. That's really sad. Let's go down here. Last, Chat GPT. Okay. Chat GPT. What are we talking about? Chat GPT there. That's a curious comment. Chat GPT is a great thing. I use it, and I could not do this without using it. Because I'm looking for sponsors. I'm running the magazine or the newsletter, scheduling, and all this I do by hand. So there's some certain workflows that really save my butt, because there's only so many hours in a day that I can do this. And with the library, oh, by the way, shout out to the Mangum City library here for giving us these, sponsoring us and giving us a place we can call home. And that I truly appreciate. So, and I don't know how I'm going to end this. This is going to be crazy because it says go live. So you guys are going to have to be patient in me in ending the show. Scheduled. This is weird. It's like it's okay. So I'm Rod Duff. I'm your host of Insights and Straight Talk, and that is crazy. I don't know how I can end this. I wonder if I have to just leave. See what it says. You guys, we're on a really weird show here because I have no idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open one of the two streams live. Oh, how'd you guys like my yeah. Oh wow, I can watch myself. I had to put myself on mute. Yeah, okay. 117 thumbs up. Okay, we have 327. All right. I'm gonna get out of here because this is now all I'm doing is talking to myself now. Uh I don't know how to end this. That's really bizarre. Let me see if I go live again. What happens?
Hundreds of trillions of dollars coursing through our economic veins, there exists a pathway where no U.S. citizen needs.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.